Chinese police ramp up their harassment of activists and petitioners as the Communist Party leaders gather for meetings. Empty shops in China tell a different story than the official figures about the country's economy. In an important economic area, 70% of the firms are considering moving part of their production capacity out of China. And China's ambassador to Australia compared an Australian politician's words with those of Nazi Germany's propaganda minister. This politician was critical of the Chinese Communist Party. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. First, we turn to an update about the Chinese Communist Party or CCP virus outbreak in China. The situation in the city of Shanghai is growing tense. Information is circulating that a patient in quarantine tested positive for the CCP virus and infected 5 others. City officials have denied the claim. But at the same time, Shanghai's Municipal Road Transportation Bureau has further stepped up prevention and control measures. The department has made mask wearing mandatory on all buses and in taxis. Shanghai's Epidemic Prevention and Control Office is also ramping up measures. It recently announced that it would tighten its monitoring procedures for travelers returning to Shanghai from high-risk areas, including in the protocol timely health reports, a 14-day quarantine period, and 2 mandatory virus tests. Fengcheng City of the southeastern province of Jiangxi suddenly issued an important notice requiring the entire city to fully activate prevention and control measures. The notice also asks anyone visiting from outside to bring proof within 7 days of entering that they tested negative for the virus. But the official figures do not reflect a need for these sudden control measures. As of Monday, Jiangxi Province official update claims to have had 241 consecutive days with no confirmed cases locally. Now to China's Xinjiang region. Inside Kashgar City, the pandemic is getting worse. As of Tuesday, the number of confirmed virus cases in the region reached over 180, and 178 of them are asymptomatic. That's according to official data. Health Committee expert Wang Guangfa claimed on Monday that authorities can't rule out the emergence of a super spreader. That means an infected patient who quickly transmit the virus to others at a higher rate than usual. Now we look to corruption in China. During the first 3 quarters of this year, nearly 400,000 Chinese Communist Party officials were punished for corruption and other disciplinary violations. This, according to a report issued over the weekend by China's Central Commission for Discipline Inspection. From January to September, the inspection department received over 2 million complaints and reports of corruption by CCP officials from across the country. More than 440,000 have been investigated by authorities. In the end, 390,000 officials were punished. The highest-ranking official among them is the Deputy Director of China's National Energy Administration. China's Communist Party's leadership is gathering for meetings. This as Chinese police ramp up harassment of activists and petitioners by blocking them from filing their complaints to Beijing senior officials.
The Communist Party's biggest decision-making body is holding a meeting. The so-called 5th plenum of the CCP will set economic and social policy goals for the next 5 years. But these are also times when life gets even harder for Chinese dissidents and petitioners.
现在传唤你丈夫到派出所接受调查。传唤证，哪个派出所？我现在口头传唤他。
Rights activist and lawyer Ni Yulan said the police tried to force her and her 70-year-old husband to leave Beijing.
They are trying to drive us away because they don't want us to live here during this political meeting. They said the house we were renting was illegal, and they wanted to take us to the police station for investigation. And they summoned my partner to the police station, where he was handcuffed and taken away.
Her husband was released after 25 hours of detention. Ni lost the use of her legs after being tortured by Chinese police in 2002. She's known for advocating against the Chinese regime's forced demolition of people's homes. Police presence is heavy around the venue of the CCP meeting, preventing dissidents from showing up. Chinese petitioners often flood Beijing during such meetings. They see them as chances to seek help from senior officials. The regime, however, considers the volume of petitioners to be bad for its image. An online video shows several plainclothes police trying to arrest a female petitioner at one subway station's checking point. Zhang Deli is a petitioner and victim of China's forced demolition. He was forced to stay at a hotel during the political meeting.
I've been put in the small hotel since the 21st. 4 police guards were watching me. 4 at night, 4 during the day. Who knows what they are trying to do? I don't know. I don't have much food. Now I feel pain all over my body.
Despite various attempts at blocking them, some petitioners still made it to Beijing and even to the National Public Complaints and Proposal Administration.
2020年10月26号，信访局门口，人山人海。
Some petitioners from other regions say they started the journey to Beijing half a month early. They sneaked into Beijing and stayed hidden. They also switched off their mobile phones for fear of being detected. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
An online petition calling for an end to the CCP has gained almost 200,000 signatures. The petition has been created for a few months.
A petition calling for an end to the Chinese Communist Party has gained over 160,000 signatures since June. It was created by Chinese Americans, some of whom experienced the CCP's authoritarian regime firsthand. The petition's website details a brief history of the CCP's suppression of the Chinese people, including the one-child policy, the 1989 massacre of students at Tiananmen Square, the suppression of Hong Kongers, and the cover-up of the CCP virus. The petition is inspired by the book 9 Commentaries on the Chinese Communist Party. This book centers around taking a deep examination of the CCP's history, published by NTD's sister media, the Epoch Times. Within the U.S., the End CCP petition is gaining recognition. Congressman Scott Perry believes it sends a great message. He says the CCP will not willingly stand down, that they must be forced out.
Look, I think that's a great message, but I don't think the Communist Party of China is just going to fold up and walk away willingly. It's a criminal organization that has taken control of a country. They're not going to leave of their own accord. They're going to have to be forced out of authority and out of power, one way or the other.
Perry recently introduced a bill to designate the CCP as a transnational criminal organization. Wang Qing, a mainland Chinese citizen living in the United States, told us that the CCP's influence can even be seen in the U.S.
Not to mention in China, even the Chinese who have fled overseas, like me, don't have freedom of speech. If I say something on Twitter, the party will hunt my family down.
The petition vows to raise awareness of this issue with governmental officials and other organizations to get more voices heard, 161,051 voices and counting.
Now we take a look at shops in China. This video from earlier this week showed Nanjing Road in Shanghai City. This road was one of the most prosperous commercial streets in the whole country. Now many shops there are closed. The words on the video read, "The real economy on Nanjing Road is about to collapse, and everything has already begun. Big footwear wholesale markets in Shanghai remain closed." The most famous one among them, Damingshu City, did not close during the epidemic, but had already closed last year to a poor financial performance. The epidemic led to more footwear markets in the area to close. This video was taken earlier this month. Another video taken around the same time in another economically developed city, Shenzhen in South China, shows a shopping center that is almost empty. Now we take a look into one of China's most important economic centers, the Pearl River Delta. Nearly 70% of companies there are reportedly considering a big change, moving at least part of their production capacity out of China. About 2/3 of them say they are motivated by the impacts of the pandemic, while 1/3 attributes the possible relocation to other reasons. Most of the companies say they'd prefer to keep part of their factory operations in China. That's because they aim for a decentralized supply chain model. The Pearl River Delta is located in southern China in the economic powerhouse of Guangdong Province. Known as a mega city, it produces 80% of Guangdong's total economic output. Nearby Dongguan City has been dubbed the world's factory, with manufacturers there producing for companies across the globe. 19-year-old pro-democracy activist Tony Chun was arrested Tuesday morning on his way to seek asylum at the U.S. consulate. He faces charges under the national security law. Local media said Chun had gone to the consulate early Tuesday morning, but since the consulate wasn't open yet, he waited nearby at a coffee shop. Chun told UK-based group Friends of Hong Kong he had been followed to the coffee shop. Local media said Chun was snatched from the coffee shop and taken to a government building. He's the former leader of Hong Kong pro-independence group Student Localism, which disbanded before Beijing implemented the draconian security law. The group posted online saying he was missing, then updated it to say he had accepted legal assistance from his lawyer. Chun had been freed on bail after being arrested under the national security law in July. Aside from Chun, police also detained 2 others on the same grounds. Police say they were aged between 17 and 21. There has been no official response from either China or the U.S. Hours later, police arrested another 4 Hong Kong activists who were also seeking asylum at the U.S. consulate. Hong Kong police have cracked down on pro-democracy activists since the implementation of the national security law on June 30th. Western countries and human rights groups have widely condemned the move. The law punishes what Beijing broadly defines as secession, subversion, and terrorism and collusion with foreign forces, with up to life in prison. Hong Kong Bar Club 71 is known as a gathering place for pro-democracy activists and intellectuals, but it's closing at the end of this month due to the impact of the pandemic.
Months of government-mandated bar closures and the rents have made Club 71 financially unable to continue running the bar. Nearly 15 years ago, owner Grace Ma decided to name her bar Club 71 in commemoration of a July 1, 2003 rally. Hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers protested a proposed national security law for the semi-autonomous Hong Kong. Social distancing restrictions have halved the capacity of the city's bars and restaurants, making it more difficult for them to turn a profit. One of Club 71's customers is former lawmaker and pro-democracy activist Leung Kwok Hung, known as Long Hair in Hong Kong.
It is a hub for everyone to connect and communicate with each other. Sometimes sit around and discuss what to do. So you can say it's a meeting point.
Fiona Ho has been a loyal customer for decades. She works in sales and marketing.
I think the displays and decorations or its interior design in the bar reflect a lot on different social issues and other topics.
Other famous bar-goers over the years have included Hong Kong singer Denise Ho, who is known for her pro-democracy stance, as well as acclaimed filmmaker Christopher Doyle. The end of the venue also comes as Hong Kong faces unprecedented changes under a new national security law imposed by Beijing in June.
The Trump administration has approved potential arms sales to Taiwan. The State Department made the announcement on Monday. The deal is estimated to be worth nearly $2.4 billion. Up to 100 Harpoon coastal defense systems and 400 coastal defense cruise missiles are reportedly included. The move comes days after the State Department approved the potential sale of 3 other weapon systems to Taiwan. Among them are sensors, missiles, and artillery, with a total value of $1.8 billion. The move quickly prompted a new sanctions threat from Beijing. U.S. Republican Senator Marco Rubio on Monday introduced a bill to block Chinese companies from accessing U.S. capital markets. Companies blacklisted by Washington due to national security concerns would be affected. Among others, the bill would bar U.S. investment firms, retirement funds, and insurance companies from taking stake in Chinese companies. If it's approved, blacklisted Chinese companies would also be banned from trading on U.S. stock exchanges, following a year-long grace period. If passed, surveillance camera maker Hangzhou Hikvision would likely be among those affected. Hikvision was added to the U.S. trade blacklist over its involvement in Beijing's suppression of its Uyghur Muslim ethnic group. The bill could also hurt telecom companies China Telecom and China Mobile. The Defense Department previously labeled them as being backed by the Chinese military. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warns of the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, the United States and India have signed a pact to share sensitive satellite and map data to help tackle the threat.
Pompeo arrived in New Delhi on Monday with Defense Secretary Mark Esper. The pact will give India access to a range of data that is considered vital for targeting of missiles and armed drones. The U.S. plans to sell more fighter planes and drones to India, as well as providing advanced navigational aids. The new pact comes at a time of increasing aggression from China directed at India, the U.S., and other countries around the globe.
We stand shoulder to shoulder in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific for all, particularly in light of increasing aggression and destabilizing activities by China.
Pompeo agreed, saying the two countries had to work together to confront the threat the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, posed to security and freedom.
Our leaders and our citizens see with increasing clarity that the CCP is no friend to democracy, the rule of law, transparency, nor to freedom of navigation, the foundation of a free and open and prosperous Indo-Pacific.
Pompeo has been trying to bolster allies to counter China's growing influence in the region for some time. And President Trump has made being tough on China a key part of his campaign to secure a second term in next week's presidential election.
Now we turn to Australia. China's ambassador to Australia has launched a verbal attack against an Australian senator, as well as other critics of the Chinese Communist regime. This after the Australian government hosted public hearings on a new foreign relations bill. If the new bill passes, it could bring an end to China's Belt and Road Initiative in the country, an infrastructure investment program often used to expand China's influence overseas. During the hearing, Senator Eric Abetz from the Tasmanian state called on 3 Chinese-Australian witnesses to denounce the Chinese Communist Party. China's ambassador Chen Jingye claimed Abetz's words have the smack of Goebbels' tricks, referring to Joseph Goebbels, who worked as Nazi Germany's infamous propaganda minister. The Chinese diplomat also denounced representatives who were critical of Beijing during the inquiry, claiming they made malicious allegations and were notorious for their long-standing anti-China stance. Senator Abetz responded, saying it is excruciatingly ironic that the dictatorship's mouthpiece makes a comparison with a regime that so closely mirrors his own, holding people in concentration camps, making illegal land grabs, persecuting religious minorities, and repressing pro-democracy activists. In April, Chen hinted at retaliatory trade strikes against Australia. This after Australia called for an inquiry into the origins of the CCP virus. At the same time, Italy is taking a tougher stance against Chinese telecom giant Huawei. The country is barring Italian telecoms company Fastweb from dealing with Huawei, specifically blocking Huawei's 5G equipment from being used in Italy's network infrastructure. 3 sources close to the matter told Reuters that the decision was made during a cabinet meeting last week. It's the first time Italy has vetoed using Chinese gear in its 5G network. Fastweb had previously selected Huawei as its sole supplier. But after the vote, Italy's government asked Fastweb to diversify its suppliers. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Italy in September. While there, he described Huawei as a threat to the country's national security. Hong Kong travelers boarded a flight to nowhere on Saturday to enjoy a bird's-eye view of the city and the sunset. This is the latest travel trend to give people a glimpse of normality during the CCP virus pandemic.
An Airbus A320 with 100 Hong Kong passengers on board flew within 200 nautical miles in the southeast direction from Hong Kong. The trip offered window sightseeing over the South China Sea and some of Hong Kong's iconic city views. Passengers were excited about the 90-minute golden hour trip, including 22-year-old Albert.
I really miss the time when we could fly and travel. It has been almost a half year that I haven't boarded a plane, and today I got this chance to fly. Although it's just an experience, but anything's better than nothing. I'm very excited about it and enjoying it so far.
The flight had sold out in 30 minutes, with tickets costing between $110 and $150. Seats were sold by rows, so passengers could book the tickets for 2 or 3 as a group. Hong Kong Airlines' Golden Hour flight follows in the footsteps of its competitor budget carrier HK Express. Its 3 Flycation Experience flights promptly sold out shortly after online booking began. The 3 flights offered by HK Express will take off in November. With the aviation industry in deep crisis, several carriers in Taiwan, Australia, and Japan have been offering short flights. All of them start and end at the same airport.
And that's all for today's China In Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.